Good day everyone. Welcome back to Educate Yourself. So in this session, we are discussing the last portion or the last data type inside the PHP data type session, that is PHP object. So let's get into the topic directly. Classes and objects are the two main aspects of object-oriented programming. For the object-oriented programming, it is important to define the objects as well as classes. Why? Because a class is a template for the objects. So, even if there is an existence for the objects, there will of course need the classes. That means only a class is there, then only we can define an object. Why? Because the class will be having the domain attributes or the features about all the characters that should include in each of the object created from that class name. Okay, so that is why we are calling a class is a template for the objects, and an object is an instance of a class. That means you can create a number of objects from the same class name or the same class, because the difference here is each of the objects will be having different values, whereas the properties or the basic contents inside these objects will be from the class, that is from the domain itself. That's why we are calling this object as an instance of each of a class, and the objects are as the templates for the class. Okay, so when the individual objects are created, okay, let's see how this works. They inherit all the properties and behavior from the class. Okay, that's why we told that this is actually the templates. Class is actually the template for each objects created from that class. Okay, so but each objects will have different values for the properties. Okay, so let's see how to define a class. Firstly, in the PHP we define first PHP, and then you write the class first, then you can use any class name here. That's upon you on which function or which concept you are going to create this class. You can name accordingly, and this is the way. And inside this class you can add or you can declare the class variables and its functions as well. So this is the simplest method to define a class and objects inside. So class is a domain where you can generally create some of the criterias and functions. That means the variables as well as function generally for all the objects that are going to appear in your program, and the objects will just take the values from the inputs, but the concepts and the functions and others from the class itself. Okay, so let's get into an example right now. So we defined an example right here. Started with our PHP code. You can see class car. That means this car is actually a class name. We started to define a class here. So inside this you can see public and a variable. Okay, public, there are three different publics repeated here. Let's get into that topic else. Now you can see two variables in the name, color as and also model. So we can generally say that this class having the class name car will be having the properties like color and model. That means this can be the attributes or the values or the inputs that we are going to use in this class named car. Okay, so we firstly defined our major two inputs or the variables. They are color and model. Then you can see the function name here. So this is actually a function. So our first function is also defined firstly using the public, then function, and this is the function name construct. Okay, each of the function will be having a representation like this. That means it's braces, And when you call this construct function, it has got a priority, or it has got a speciality, because this PHP will automatically call this function when you create an object from a class. That means here our class name is car. So whenever you are using this car class name to define some objects, what will automatically, this function will automatically called then when you going to when you create a object using that class name. So we, for that easiness, I use this construct class function here. And you can see two arguments such as color and model. So they are the actually our properties or the inputs here, or the variables we define here. So our function is like this: function, construct, color, model. So these are the inputs or the arguments into this function. And inside, that means we opened our first function here, and inside you can see this color is actually what, another variable inside this function, which will be storing the value from the variable color. Okay, and the same instance, this model is actually the other variable declared inside this function for storing the value from the model variable. So in order to just accept or to store the values from the arguments into our function, we define this function. Then we are moving to another function. As you can see here, this is public function message. So here I am going to write some message for my program or for my concept. So my message is like this: my car is a color also model. That means I am going to write or display a message like this: my car is a yellow Volvo. Like that, you can just mention your color and a model name, car model here. Okay, and we can see many more things inside or in between these things. Let's get into this each correctly. So firstly, what is this return? This return is done here because this is a function and this is a class. Wherever you need to access these message, you will need to return the values totally to that object. That's why you use this return here. And we are double quoted and written something inside. Simply, they are my car is a. This is actually the manual message that we need to add into our message. And then after this quotes, you can see a dot here. We know that this dot is normally used to link between different things inside the, or the data inside the message. So we defined or linked another thing, that is the variable. This color is actually a variable we defined in our construct function actually. So it will automatically link when you use this dot and the correct variable name there. And you can see another dot here. That means it's not stopping there, it's still linking to something more. And you can see this is also a double quote, and inside it is just written nothing. That means you are going to give a little space there, and then we again dotted and linked this model variable to this message. So this model variable is actually for what? To mention which model your car is of. Okay, and we stopped like this, and also we linked another exclamatory mark along with this. So what we used, we just linked that one, just double quoted inside to this, and we closed our message. Okay, and we completed two of our functions, and we just come out of the class 2. Then we defined a single variable like my car is equal to new car black comma Volvo. So as you can see, this is a variable, but still it calls the function name car here, sorry, the class name car here. So what will automatically happen? This car having the like these variables or the inputs will be called and will be collected to these values like black and Volvo. So firstly, this is one way you can just correctly or just give these values to the my car. Then it will store the values from the car having the input data or the attributes such as black and Volvo to the my car variable. Then you are going to output that or print that. So echo is the function here, and you can see echo my car message. That means it will send the my car variable to the message out there in that car class. Okay, so what will happen, you will get a message like this: my car is black, will automatically go to color, and then it will eventually go to this color also. Model will automatically goes to this model too. So you'll get a link or a message like this: my car is a black Volvo. Okay, so we printed our message like that, and then we break, and again for the same instance we are going to define another here. So what is the use of these things? Actually, my new doesn't matter, this car is actually the class name here. So when you defined this car having these values inside, it will automatically calls that function, because we used construct function here. What is the feature of this construct function? It will automatically call the function when you create an object. That is, this is actually our objects, we are creating it with our own values. Okay, so that will be recollected and will be called easily to the function or the class where it is declared, and you will get the values according to the objects or the objects we are defining and the values we are giving. Okay, so the classes are actually the templates, whereas the objects are the instances, because they are having different values. So you can see this is our first object, and here you can see two different values for the same class, and the another object we created with the same function. So it will automatically call this function and work accordingly, and you'll get a message using the variables or the inputs you are going to do or input into that object. So that will be replaced like this. Okay, so this is the simplest way or the simple example to define a PHP object in PHP data types. Thank you.